Sup YouTube, it's your boy Slide8Fry here. So I'm gonna do a react video to the newest Scott the Woz video. It just came out. It's actually later in the day than I usually would do these react videos, so I hope to have this done before it gets dark. It's not really that dark right now, but anyways, let's get this done. It's a 24-minute video. I'm sure I'll have a lot to say, but I'll try not to make it too long for the sake of not letting it get dark and missing out on potential work opportunities.
Hey y'all, Scott here. Put on your 3D glasses right now because I'm about to be as realistic as ever. I'm never gonna be truly happy. 3D, making old things new
glasses.
Again. Out of all the gimmicks to warrant re-releasing old stuff, 3D is definitely fairly compelling. I mean, it's an entirely new way to experience something. But at the end of the day, that's all it is to many. A gimmick. In some instances, 3D isn't an unnecessary gimmick. It's also expensive too. Nevertheless, some products are enhanced because of the pop-out sync-in effects. They add a level of depth that, if done properly, can truly immerse you in that ordeal. While movies are the most common use for multiple Ds, video games seem like a no-brainer. Sony really leaned hard into the whole thing, with many PlayStation 3 titles supporting the cause. But I want old shit in 3D, not good shit.
I don't know why you would, though.
Nintendo steps in. They've been one of the most consistent supporters of stereoscope.
Why would you want a side-scrolling platformer in 3D? It doesn't make any sense. They're not moving. There's no Z-axis in the game. You know, just the X and the Y-axis. So what's so 3D about that?
3D. They had a headset for the Famicom, tested it out with the GameCube,
they tried,
up with the Virtual Boy, and created an entire handheld surrounding the technology. The Nintendo 3DS was released in early 2011, featuring a glasses-free 3D display. I can't see anything. Every game supported 3D for the majority of its life, but that was a big deal, and it wasn't a big deal.
Let's go back.
Free 3D display. I can't see it.
This needs to be the thumbnail. Look at those blue eyes. They're just... Okay. I'm acting weird now.
Every game supported 3D for the majority of its life, but that was a big deal, and it wasn't a big deal. $250? I can get surgery for that price. I never said it was quality. I mean, the 3D worked, but no game really made you go, I get it. The effect was merely cool, but you'd inevitably pass it up after a while to just go back to normal 2D visuals.
Exactly.
Pretty much how everything else 3D worked. So how do you convey what 3D can do to enhance your gaming experience? You don't. Games that use it properly, or you re-release Excitebike. Wow, I wonder what Nintendo will do. In the early days of the Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo announced a new line of titles, dubbed the 3D Classics series. Retro games remastered with 3D in mind, released exclusively on the Nintendo 3DS eShop throughout 2011 and 2012 for roughly 5 to 7 bones of pop. This is such a cool idea. Imagine the possibilities. This line can truly go on forever. They can include some of the greatest games of all time. I love this company! Remakes were Nintendo's answer to validating 3D in the 3DS's early days. Ocarina of Time 3D, Star Fox 64 3D. What better way to show how it can enhance something than by using it with something we all know inside and out? But these games were already 3D in terms of polygons. How do you take a 2D game and convert that to scopic stereos? Well, Nintendo knew exactly who to get on the phone. Eureka! They made Endless Ocean and Dr. Mario Express. No shit, they know what they're doing. With that, development of the 3D Classics line kicked off all the way back in 2009, which 2 years seems like an extraordinary amount of development time for that. I guess it just goes to show what seems like the easiest things to make in the game industry, well, they can often be the toughest. Bringing a game over to a new platform, yet most assume there was an Amazon dash button for that. In reality, it's a ton of work, and these 3D classics were a similar story. They had to rebuild these retro games from the ground up, while also taking how they would work in 3D into consideration now. The results? Well, let's check out the first game of the lineup, 3D Classics Excitebike. This was initially seen at E3 2010 amongst 17 other classic games showcased in a demo titled Classic Games. Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Punch-Out, NES Open Tournament Golf, Kirby's Adventure, Tennis, The Mysterious Murasame Castle, TwinBee, Kid Icarus, Urban Champion, Mega Man 2, Castlevania, Smash Ping Pong, Super Mario World, and Yoshi's Island were showcased in addition to Excitebike, all with a 3D effect.
Cool they show some Super Nintendo games, but you know, ever since getting a Switch and doing the online service, playing NES and SNES games, Classic, like I didn't play very much NES growing up because I was born in '88 and mostly played Super Nintendo and some Sega Genesis and then N64, some PlayStation. I played NES Open Tournament Golf, and I can't get that. Now that he showed it, I suddenly have that song stuck on my head. The one from the USA course. You know, it does that. It does that song that you can call me Mr. Touchdown, you can call me Mr. T, but it's 8-bit. It's just do 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 do, and I can't get the song. Now it's stuck on my head again. Thank you, Scott. I got that song stuck on my head again. Oh my goodness. Don't get me wrong, I love the song. I love the 8-bit rendition, but it's stuck on my head again. God damn it.
Now, these weren't playable demos. It was merely just showing the games running in 3D. The background usually just kind of sunk in. But considering nearly all the 3D Classics titles were a part of this demo may imply that these were being considered for the series as well. In fact, the 3D Classics developers outright stated Tennis for NES was being worked on in the series, but it was scrapped due to just not being that appealing in 3D. Maybe because it just wasn't that appealing in general. Regardless, 3D Classics Excitebike was made available right at the Nintendo 3DS's eShop launch, which occurred on June 6th, 2011. And for the first month, it was completely free to download as a way to thank 3DS users for putting up with the fact the eShop wasn't available until 4 months after they got their damn systems. The 3DS was released in an incomplete and overpriced state, but they gave me Excitebike for free, bitches! In actuality, I was one of the schmucks who waited until August 2011 to buy their 3DS when the price dropped from $250 to $170. That was quite the discount, but because of that, I missed out on the 3DS Ambassador program, which gave those who bought the system for $250 before August 10 free downloadable NES games valued at $5 a piece, 10 free downloadable Game Boy Advance games valued at $7 a piece, and I missed out on free Excitebike and had to buy it for $6. Did I save money or not? It's been a while since I used the 3D effect on a 3DS. I used to go all in with this sucker, full 3D to the max. Christ, it's just the title screen, and this is one of the most loud 3D effects in the 3DS library. It's just so 3D. That's probably because not only can you use the 3D slider to adjust the intensity, there's in-game 3D controls too, so you can gouge your eyes out, but you can gouge your eyes out just a little bit more. Go the extra mile. Interestingly, 3D Classics Excitebike has the entire background change perspective with the adjustment of the 3D slider. Like, you literally see more of it when it cranks up. Most of the time, adjusting the slider in 3DS games just feels like adjusting the audio's volume, you know? It just increases or decreases the 3D effect, nothing major. This title, it literally moves the background further and further within the game, which is really cool.
Yeah,
it's a level of control I never
works.
associated with the 3D slider, but it's here. The game itself, it's Excitebike. Don't look. This is an undeniably nearly flawless recreation of the original NES game from 1985, though now it's in widescreen with a few other graphical improvements. Certain obstacles are rendered in 3D now, and it all runs so much smoother. You have analog control, meaning you can pop a wheelie, or just kind of pop a wheelie. It all adds up to the game having a much smoother feel than ever before. However, the game having these 3D obstacles, well, they're only really in 3D when the 3D slider is on. What the developers did was fundamentally make the game exactly like the 2D original when the slider is down all the way. But when you crank it up more and more, it strays farther and farther. It's really bizarre. Some scenes, specifically the menus, are still in a pseudo 4x3 letterbox, which is strange considering these were remade from scratch. They didn't have to be constrained to 4x3, but they chose to. And they chose to do it with the easiest part of the game to make widescreen. Like, wouldn't the actual game be the hardest to turn widescreen in this menu with a one-color background? Couldn't that be done during a lunch break? I don't care.
Probably.
I mean, it looks fine. It's not like they kept black bars there. They're spruced it up. It's just confusing to me. The biggest upgrade, though, has to be the track editor. Excitebike infamously had a track editor that was a bit of a nightmare to use, and as a bonus, was pointless. You couldn't save your tracks. It gave you the option to save, but that just meant for as long as your game was turned on, because when you turned it off, I got pissed for you. 3D Classics Excitebike gives you numerous slots to save multiple tracks to. The interface has been completely revamped in such a smart way, where you can shift through parts more elegantly. However, if you still want to use the editor in the style of the original, you have that option. At the end of the day, this is the definitive version of Excitebike in my opinion, and that's not even taking the 3D effect into consideration.
Yeah, another thing that's cool is since this game was available to download on the Wii Virtual Console, which I did download to the Wii Virtual Console, was my first experience actually playing Excitebike, because on the Wii Virtual Console, except the N64 games, just anything that's before that, you know, NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx 16. Oh, and not the Neo Geo games either. So neither Neo Geo or N64, but everything else before it. When you actually press home and you go to the Wii menu, it actually literally saves exactly where you were So that actually allows you to permanently save your custom tracks, even back then. But obviously you have to remember to tell it to go to the Wii menu instead of resetting. But no, the way that it's done on the 3DS is definitely better, because you actually save its actual track slots, and there's probably a lot more of them than
with it is no contest.
Than what the NES
this
would be
is
capable of.
The way to play Excitebike. It's a fun arcade-style NES game about making jumps properly to get the best time, and now it's more realistic than ever. This title set the standard for what I expected out of the 3D Classics line from that point forward, and taking all those games Nintendo demoed at E3 2010 into consideration, I was excited. Like, yes. Come on, Super Mario World, Zelda, Mega Man 2? So many possibilities! How about Xevious, you dumb bitch? This launched right alongside 3D Classics Excitebike in Japan on June 7th, but everywhere else, we got it a month later on July 21st. I remember Xevious. I had it on one of those Namco plug-and-play consoles. Ever since, I haven't been happy. Yeah, this isn't a Nintendo game. It's a developed and published by Namco arcade joint. Well, I think we all at least know of Xevious. I mean, come on, we're all friends here. It's not a favorite for many of us, which makes sense as it turns out Xevious is beloved in Japan. Well, here it didn't see as much success. It was the first game they developed for the 3D Classics line. Japanese players and developers adore Xevious, and it's not difficult to see why. It's a solid arcade title. I just personally prefer the likes of Galaga. But even if players outside of Japan, i.e. the man, myself, I, weren't too excited about Xevious itself, the idea of non-Nintendo games being eligible for this series gave me goosebumps.
That's pretty cool,
Hopping into 3D Classics Xevious, it retains the exact same menu setup as Excitebike, including the same main menu music. Literally, all the options are the same across the whole series, so it's all about the game now.
Ugh.
The 3D effect is so good, it made me deaf. Well, Xevious was at the review in 1982. Just like Excitebike, this is in widescreen as well, though being a vertical shooter, there's not a ton you could do to make the game widescreen while also perfectly recreating it. Like, okay, if Xevious is in widescreen now, well, there's gonna be no enemies on the sides of the screen, and if you put enemies on the sides, this isn't my Xevious! So the developers put clouds on the sides to give the game widescreen, which is a brilliant solution. The 3D effect helps differentiate between what's next to you and below you. You have two different shots, one for enemies in the air and one for enemies on the ground. And as a dumb kid, i.e. 4 days ago, never really thought about how perspective really plays into Xevious. These things are below you and require you to drop a bomb on them. I just thought they were bullshit. Why isn't my main attack hitting them? Okay, I'll use this one for whatever reason. 3D Classics Xevious with the 3D on helps show specifically what obstacles are right in front of you and which ones are on the ground. And for a game all about firing the right weapon depending on the plane your enemy's on.
Actually helps.
Yeah, I'll give in. This was a good choice for 3D Classics. Other than that, it's just Xevious. There's no real new additions. You can quick save high scores. There's not much else to it. So for $5.99, it's okay. When you're in the $6 territory, there's not a ton you can do to argue against its value.
Yeah,
what are you going to spend those $6 on? Xevious? Oh, he's got to budget things out. The next 3D Classics release came to Japan on July 13th and everywhere else on August 18th. That being 3D Classics, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
Urban Champion is an old school black box NES game, meaning it saw Reagan. Excitebike was a black box game too, and it's actually older than Urban Champion, which gives Urban Champion less of an excuse. It's an early example of a fighting game. Nintendo's
it's not a very good one.
You just punch and punch and punch your opponent, and whoever gets punched into a manhole loses. Just like real life. Now, this game is sort of the punching bag in Nintendo's early titles, generally considered one of their worst.
Yes.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I wouldn't willingly play it, but I'd so rather endure this than most of the NES black box sports titles. It's just so...
Yeah, oh my gosh. If Nintendo is watching, which I'm sure they're not, but if they are, please. I have, in fact, played an NES before. I just didn't grow up playing it. I grew up playing the next generation, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, so on. But I have played an NES, and when it comes to baseball, I played a game called Bases Loaded. It's a good baseball game on the NES. It's actually pretty good. And there's also this other one called Baseball Stars, I think, which had a sequel on Neo Geo, which I've played thanks to the Wii Virtual Console. But anyways, Baseball Stars for the NES is also considered really good. But yeah, I played the NES game just called Baseball through my Switch online service, and I hate that game. It sucks. Controlling is insane. You hit the ball, and then you have this wide view like you're someone from the stands, and you see everybody on the field, and you're controlling everybody on the field at the same time to try to retrieve the ball. It's bonkers. It's stupid. Why would you have it control that way? Oh my god. Please put Bases Loaded on the NES Online service, not baseball. Baseball sucks. I don't even recall if Blades of Steel's on there. Ice Hockey's on there, but I don't think Blades of Steel's on there, which it should be, because that Blades of Steel is a classic hockey game. Konami did a great job with that one. Man. Yeah, in the early days, there some of the Nintendo designed sports games were just not very good. They got better at it later on, and then they just kind of now it's just third parties that make them, which is better anyways, because Nintendo specializes at platformers and adventures and stuff, and other things.
Basic
racing.
And simple and stupid and clunky and slow, and I think Nintendo knows this and re-releases it all the time as a joke. It got an arcade release, numerous virtual console releases, it can be played on a card, and it was the third 3D Classics title, which again, I'm positive they did this as a joke. An Urban Champion just doesn't have anything warranting a 3D re-release.
No,
what are you gonna do? Finally answer the question, where is this building? Turns out 3D Classics Urban Champion
New York, I think,
is the most in-depth one so far. The title adds up. Deep in the settings, you can turn on a new camera mode where after every round, it shows us exactly what was going on 30 degrees to the left. And they pretty much recreated the entire game with 3D models. Why have we not stepped foot on Mars? Because we wasted our time doing shit like this. On top of that, multiplayer is included, where you can connect to another 3DS nearby. You get new rank titles for enduring a certain number of rounds, which brings incentive to playing the game longer than a minute. Man, I played 3D Classics Urban Champion for 4 minutes. I was only expecting to play for 3. So they really went above and beyond with this version. Maybe they decided to remake Urban Champion to see how much they could improve a game that legitimately needed improvements. I think that should be done more often with remakes. Remake a game that actually needs remade. At the end of the day, however, the 3D Classics developers stick.
It's like what AVGN said in the 2010 episode Street Fighter 2010, as he went on a tangent and reviewed a bunch of classic Street Fighter games, including the original, which came out for the PC Engine, or PC Engine CD or TurboGrafx CD, Street Fighter 1, and he said, with all these editions of Street Fighter 2, you'd think they'd do one for the first game. Street Fighter, the good edition, because the original Street Fighter 2 is incredible, but the original Street Fighter is terrible. Oh my god. No wonder why they just kind of ignored it. They might as well have just called the second game Street Fighter and just ignored the existence of the very, very first one. My own experience with Street Fighter 1, by the way, I live in Sonoma County. I live in Santa Rosa. I've lived also right here in Roanoke Park as well. I happen to be in Roanoke Park right now. So I've lived in various places within Sonoma County. Santa Rosa, Roanoke Park, Santa Rosa, Windsor, Sebastopol, Roanoke Park, Sebastopol, Santa Rosa. Anyways, there's a local chain here called Juice Shack, which is really, really great. They have amazing smoothies there, and despite being local, they're actually more affordable than Jamba Juice, which is actually, a national chain. Usually the local things are more expensive than the national chains, but in this case, it's the other way around. Juice Shack's more affordable than Jamba Juice, and I like it more as well. But in just about every Juice Shack in the area, if you enter, you'll find an arcade machine there, a multi-cade machine there, one of those arcade machines that has like 100 different like arcade games on it. One time I played the original Street Fighter on it, and I couldn't even beat the first guy because I couldn't figure out the controls on it. And not to mention, I was never good at Street Fighter. Even though I grew up in the 90s and I watched my brothers play Street Fighter 2 all the time, I just never joined in. When I tried playing it, it just felt complicated to me for some reason. I play fighting games now. I mean, I've played Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo a lot when I was younger. I've played a few different Tekken games, Soul Calibur games. I even played the very, very first Soul Calibur game, not the one on the Dreamcast, the one before it, called Soul Blade on the PlayStation 1. But anyways, yeah. I couldn't even get past the first guy on the original Street Fighter. Now, I'm not very good at Street Fighter 2, but I could, even if I played it, I could probably get all the way to M. Bison, because it plays really well. But in the very original Street Fighter, no, I can't get past the first guy. I do not just because I don't know what I'm doing, but the controls are just really bad. And not to mention, the first guy's actually kind of tough. I remember the first guy being like fast and just doing all these moves and stuff, and I was just still trying to figure out the controls. Like, yeah. It just goes to show that a lot of early fighting games just weren't very good. Like Urban Champions.
Very close to the originals, improving things that need improving,
But yeah, let's, you know, have a remake of bad games, making them good, like Street Fighter, the Good Edition, or Urban Champions, the Good Edition.
At its core, still feel the same, which is a great mantra to have, just not for Urban Champion. There really wasn't a ton you could do to this game to make it that much better without changing it completely.
Yeah,
this is definitely the definitive version of the game, but for the amount of development time this probably took, was it worth it? Like I said, the developers might have decided on this game to see if they could improve it substantially, but I don't think they chose it for that reason. I think they chose it because they thought it'd be funny. It was only $5. They knew what they were doing. Next month on August 10th in Japan and September 22nd elsewhere, the 4th title released, 3D Classics TwinBee. Who? TwinBee was an arcade vertical shooter by Konami, ported to the Famicom and various other Japanese computers in the mid-80s.
It's on the Switch Online service,
barely had a presence here in the States, and it released under a different name, Rainbow Bell, and a Konami collection for the DS over here in 2007. But this 3D Classics version was the first time it released under its true title. That's awesome, but why? Why TwinBee? Out of all Konami games you could have remade via 3D Classics, why this one? TwinBee seems to be a similar story to Xevious. It feels like Nintendo has a lot of love for this game, as just like Xevious, they keep respecting the hell out of it. They respect TwinBee more than me as a person. It was re-released as a part of the Famicom mini-series of games on the Game Boy Advance in Japan, and also released as a game on the NES and Nintendo Switch Online library. And also, like just like Xevious, it's a vertical shooter where you have two weapons, one attacking enemies in front of you and one attacking enemies below you. So, okay, that makes sense why it would be chosen for the 3D treatment, but when you only have 6 games to do this with, and you chose a game nobody's heard of that already had very similar gameplay to another game you already remade, with this being one of only 2 games in this lineup that Nintendo didn't develop, so they had to go out of their way to license out. I'll stop talking shit on TwinBee. Well, it's TwinBee, pretty much the same game as the Famicom version, which is also kind of strange. This was originally an arcade title, and when Xevious got the 3D Classics treatment, they used the arcade version.
Yeah.
With TwinBee, they didn't use the arcade version. They used the Famicom one. And on top of that, the game's not even in widescreen. They have this weird curtain border on the edges when they could have done something like with Xevious and put clouds on the side or something. There are clouds in the game, after all. The 3D effect is fine. I mean, like with Xevious, the game uses dual planes, so it's total.
The curtains make me think of... I grew up playing a lot of Super Game Boy, which is a cartridge you put into your Super Nintendo, and then you put a Game Boy cartridge into the Super Game Boy, and then you turn it on and you actually play your Game Boy games on the big screen through the Super Nintendo. That's what the Super Game Boy is. I played a lot of that, and because, you know, the resolution's a lot smaller on a Game Boy, it can't take up the whole screen. And don't worry, the screen's definitely bigger on the big screen than it is on the Game Boy, but like it can't take up the whole screen because of the resolution. So there's different borders you can put around it. A border of a Game Boy, a border, just a black border with cats on it, a border that looks like a signpost with a cabin in the background. It's actually one of my favorites. But another one of my favorites was the border where it looks like it's a stage play, like these curtains, and you actually have an audience in the bottom of the screen, and around it's a curtain, and it's really cool. What's cool about the curtain one is that if you don't do anything, the audience actually starts doing stuff, like somebody falls asleep, somebody opens the newspaper, 2 kids play Game Boys against each other via link cable, and someone puts lipstick on, stuff like that. And then the sign one's pretty cool too, because if you wait a while, the time of day changes from morning to afternoon to evening to night to dawn to morning. It's pretty cool. And the other backgrounds you have, some of the other ones have different features too. Like there's this dirt one where if you don't do anything, like something's digging or something, I forget. But anyways, yeah, this border thing kind of reminds me of that. Kind of makes me think they just probably were like, oh, remember the Super Game Boy? Let's just do the curtains.
Totally logical. I just don't think it adds a ton to the experience. But TwinBee was a game that made sense to be converted to 3D, even if it didn't need it. The game's good. It's a fun retro shooter. They added rapid fire, which is nice, but overall, it's just an odd choice for the series. Similar to Urban Champion, this one was also only $5 compared to the $6 charged for Excitebike and Xevious. Honestly, I kind of like this one more than Xevious, but that game had more work put into the 3D conversion. At the end of the day, I wouldn't trust either one of these with my life. Well, it took a while, but we finally got a game with some meat on its bones. Later
Kirby's
down the line on
Adventure's
November
amazing.
17th, everywhere other than Japan, which got the game much later on April 25th, 2012. 3D Classics Kirby's Adventure. It's about time we got a game that wasn't just a simple high-score type game, and Kirby's Adventure was an excellent pick, as it was one of the biggest games for NES. But because of that, the title
ran into him, really?
a ton of technical issues on that platform, which is literally the only thing they really fixed in the 3D Classics version. This is just Kirby's Adventure, but it runs buttery smooth now. It's like I'm really there. The game is still in 4x3.
It's like downloading on the Wii or doing
It's not a big deal, but when the first 3 games were given widescreen and now these don't, I feel gypped. The 3D effect is pretty minimal here as well. They kind of dim the background a bit, which you can turn on or off, but even at max 3D, it's just not that impressive. It's fine, it's not bad, it just adds nothing to the experience. I think they probably could have utilized the bottom screen more as well. The other titles just put random info on there, usually stats that would have taken up screen real estate, and Kirby's Adventure always had this big bar at the bottom showing the ability you had, the score, your life counter, and if Urban Champion could take all of its info and put it on the bottom screen, why can't Kirby? That's 0.1 for Urban Champion going against Kirby's 1200.
Okay, I was gonna say that's sacrilege, but then good, yes. Kirby, you cannot deny the greatness of Kirby.
This is the best value out of the series so far, though, being a game that actually has more than 30 minutes of content.
Okay, Scott really got me there. Like, I was like, what are you doing? And then that happened. Okay, good job. Good one, Scott.
Could have done a lot more, but just the fact the game runs smoothly comparative to the NES version is enough to make this pretty definitive. Now, is it worth $2 more than the $5 Nintendo charge for the game on Wii and Wii U? This is just ridiculous, Nintendo. I was $2 short for my surgery money because of you. Next up is 3D Classics Kid Icarus. All right, we're finally doing some actual games. This released alongside Kid Icarus Uprising here in North America as a pre-order bonus on March 23rd, 2012 before releasing to the public on April 19th for $6.
Didn't know about it.
As a Club Nintendo reward in Japan on January 18th, in Europe on February 2nd, and Australia on April 12th. Yes, who else had 5 birthdays? 3D Classics Kid Icarus is based on the original Japanese Famicom Disk System version, which you can tell by the music. The Disk System featured different audio capabilities from that of the NES, so games like Kid Icarus, Metroid, Zelda 1 and 2, those have different soundtracks in Japan on the system. Not vastly different, but they do have a different quality to them. I think they used the Japanese version specifically because it featured saving capability.
That's a good idea.
It was a password pack, which they were very proud of. Damn.
That's kind of frustrating. The Wii Virtual Console edition I downloaded was the password version. The one on the NES Online service on the Switch is also the password version. Why couldn't they have made it the Famicom version, the Famicom Disk System version? I mean, seriously, on the Wii Virtual Console, you can download the Lost Levels for NES, the original Super Mario Bros. 2 before it became the Lost Levels, 7 years later, because we got a different Super Mario Bros. 2 here that was a reskin of Doki Doki Panic. And that was the original Super Mario Bros. 2, known over here as the Lost Levels, was a Famicom Disk System game. It didn't use the Famicom cartridges, it was the Disk System thing. So if they can release that in Virtual Console, release that on the NES Online service on Switch, why are we getting the password version of Kid Icarus? Why couldn't they just do the Famicom Disk System version with the saving? It doesn't make any sense.
Again, this isn't in widescreen, so the first 3 did, the last 3 didn't. Instead, we get this sort of tacky border. I wish the 4x3 games gave you the option to change it or turn it off at the very least.
Yeah,
the 3D effect
like
is similar to
Game
Kirby's.
Boy.
It's not game-changing, but it's much more robust than that game. I feel like there's a lot more going on here. There's more going on with the features, too. You can play with the original controls, but the 3D Classics control option features a ton of quality of life improvements. Just better overall. Jumping and shooting is better, timing's adjusted, speed's adjusted. It's not a whole different game. It just feels...
What the hell was that? It sounded like somebody was following me or subscribing, but I'm not live streaming, I'm recording a video. I'm gonna have to go back and look up that footage. I'm confused.
Smoother now. But the biggest addition is the color and background.
Look at this. Maybe it came from the video itself. That was
the original
confusing.
controls, but the 3D Classics control option features
How can somebody do that if I'm not online?
Just better overall. Jumping and shooting is better, timing's adjusted, speed's adjusted. It's not a whole different game. It just feels smoother now. But the biggest addition is the color.
What the fuck just happened? I'm not streaming. I'm recording. What the hell just happened? Oh my god, I'm freaking out. I don't understand what the hell just happened. How did... What? I'm gonna go over this
Here,
again.
it was a password pack, which they were very proud of. Damn. Again, this isn't in widescreen, so the first 3 did, the last 3 didn't. Instead, we get this sort of tacky border. I wish the 4x3 games gave you the option to change it or turn it off at the very least. The 3D effect is similar to Kirby's. It's not game-changing, but it's much more robust than that game. I feel like there's a lot more going on here, and there's more going on with the features too. You can play with the original controls, but the 3D Classics control option features a ton of quality of life improvements. Just better overall. Jumping and shooting is better, timing's adjusted, speed's adjusted. It's not a whole different game. It just feels smoother now. But the biggest...
I actually thought it was part of the video. Like, part of the Scott the Woz video. Why did I hear the jingle when somebody either subscribes to my YouTube channel or follows my Twitch? Why did I just hear that? How could somebody subscribe? How could that appear on my recorded video when I'm not on the internet live streaming? I mean, I'm connected. I've connected my computer to the internet, sure, but I'm not even on the web browser and I'm not even live streaming. What the hell? What's going on? Holy crap, this is baffling to me. Okay, well, I'll check and see what that is when I finish making this video, but wow, okay. If I can get new subscribers during this video and during my recordings and it tells me, that's interesting. I never expected that to happen.
Edition is the color and backgrounds. This version includes backdrops and they look gorgeous. And the original Kid Icarus, much like various other NES games, had plain black backgrounds, which made its stage feel the exact same. I remember when they added Skyward the Smash Brothers Brawl as a stage, I thought, this looks nothing like Kid Icarus. It looks good. These backgrounds help you distinguish not only where you are in the game level-wise, but also...
Did I say second game? I mean, it looks more like the 3DS game that came out, you know, 3 years later, which is like the third game because the second game was on the Game Boy.
Story. Now it's like, yeah, no shit, I'm in the underworld. With the backgrounds and new control options, save feature new to Ohio ones, this is my favorite way to play the original Kid Icarus. The original has its charm, but it's not too fun to go back to today. This one helps me to appreciate the game
actually, yeah, some of these backgrounds look pretty good.
They didn't even change it time. They just tweaked elements that really needed it. Because I think even the most die-hard Kid Icarus fans won't admit the first game was perfect. You're gonna have mega fans say how if you're not playing the original, you're just not playing Kid Icarus. So you truly haven't lived until you've been shot in the face. But you can play this game just like the original if you want to. The new control options just made it a more fluid and fun experience. If the challenge from the NES game came from how slow and clunky the game controlled at times, you beating it doesn't mean you're the gaming messiah. It kinda just means you had more free time to beat the game. And with that, the 3D Classics line wrapped up. What a disgusting family photo. Okay, so I followed these games extensively as they were releasing. I bought Urban Champion on release day, and I still haven't made my money back on that investment. 3D Classics Excitebike was the first game I ever downloaded on my 3DS, and I bought it for $6 3 weeks after it was made available for free. I got Xevious and Kirby's Adventure shortly after. The 3D Classics as a concept was something I think everybody could get behind. 8-bit remasters in 3D. They were still the same games at their core, but enhanced in multiple ways while retaining the same visuals, music. It was amazing. They just picked the worst games to do it with. The developers commented on how difficult developing these titles were. They probably thought this would be easy peasy going into it, and then 2 years later they said, voila, Xevious. Now, I don't doubt these games took a lot of effort to make. They didn't emulate anything. These games were remade and enhanced in more ways than one. You can truly see how skilled and hardworking the developers were in not only remaking these games for the better, but retaining the feel of their original releases. That's not as easy to do as it sounds. And I'm sure, judging by the amount of 3D games they had as demos at E3 2010, they had far more plans for this series, but cut it after the 6 because they just took too long to make. Plus, they didn't sell as well as they wanted, and I totally
so it wasn't worth the investment.
You don't want to put all that work into something that won't make money back.
Yeah,
that just makes me ask why they chose Urban fucking Champion. 4 of these games were very simple, high-score based titles. Most of them were good, but why didn't they do more titles like Kirby's Adventure or Kid Icarus?
Yeah,
why not sell the one with the top-down perspective? That would have worked perfectly. Yeah. Even something like Super Mario Bros. 3 with the whole stage play aesthetic would be highlighted that much more with the 3D effect showing with the shadows. What, Mock Rider? If they wanted to stick to simpler games,
that would look good
why
in
not
3D.
Game Boy games or Super Nintendo games or just different third-party ones other than two vertical shooters which weren't that popular to begin with and honestly have a bit too much in common. I'm sure it 100% came down to these titles being the first they tried out because they were simpler at the end of the day. And if the series was a success, they would move on to more popular titles like Mario and Zelda games. But how would the series be a success when these were the games you were depending on? All these games were on systems that Nintendo was already releasing games to run the 3DS through the Virtual Console. And putting out Super Mario Bros. For $5 on the 3DS with little to no effort involved probably still made Nintendo 10 times more money than remaking Excitebike in 3D for only $1 more.
Probably.
And 3D Classics Urban Champion was the same price as most unaltered NES games on the 3DS eShop. It was the same price they charged for Urban Champion on Wii and Wii U with no changes or improvements. No wonder they canceled this series. We're gonna put more effort into this re-release but charge the exact same price as we always did, or $1 more. I personally was hoping to see a sister series on Wii U called HD Classics, where it's the same idea but 8 and 16-bit games would be remastered in HD, but I can always write to Nintendo about that later. Well, that's not
sort
the
of works
complete
with the
end of
Switch,
the story.
I guess.
Where Nintendo left
really.
off, Sega picked up with their own lineup of 3D remasters, the Sega 3D Classics, kicking off in Japan on December 26, 2012. These aren't a part of the same series, but I guess the term 3D Classics can be used by anybody. Compared to Nintendo's 6-game output, Sega released 27 of them. They know something we don't. So this is what I think happened.
Honestly, that makes sense. Sega, I think Sega is probably the most seasoned and experienced company at re-releasing their classic games. I mean, I still have Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube, and I'll still play it if I, get into a more comfortable living situation, set up all my consoles and stuff. I love that game. I love playing those games. They're so much fun. Yeah, and then of course there's Sonic's Genesis Ultimate Genesis Collection on the PS3 and the 360. I still don't know why they didn't release that on Wii. It's 16-bit games, so why did it have to be only on the 360 and PS3? I don't know. But and then there's been other collections that released later on. So
Arika is a fantastic studio. They've made some phenomenal games. They're not a porting house. You give the Teddy Together guys Excitebike, it's gonna take them a while to figure out. They did a superb job, but I feel like they weren't as efficient as they could have been through development considering this was relatively new territory for them. Sega's 3D Classics were developed by M2. This is their thing. They almost exclusively work with re-releases and consistently are contracted by Sega for this kind of stuff. And their 3D Classics have a lot of the same bells and whistles.
You're not talking about who I'm thinking you're talking about. I didn't really listen. I was looking at my phone.
Teddy Together guys Excitebike, it's gonna take them a while to figure out.
Wait, what happened? Did I go forwards? Okay.
These aren't a part of the same series, but I guess the term 3D Classics can be used by anybody. Compared to Nintendo's 6-game output, Sega released 27 of them. They know something we don't. So this is what I think happened. Arika is a fantastic studio. They've made some phenomenal games.
Never mind, it's not who I thought it was.
They're not a porting house. You give the Teddy Together guys Excitebike, it's gonna take them a while to figure out. They did a superb job, but I feel like they weren't as efficient as they could have been through development considering this was relatively new territory for them. Sega's 3D Classics were developed by M2. This is their thing. They almost exclusively work with re-releases and consistently are contracted by Sega for this kind of stuff. And their 3D Classics have a lot of the same bells and whistles as Arika's, so I think this kind of explains why there were only 6 Nintendo games. Because my god, these are packed with features. You can adjust so much, including whether or not the 3D pops out or falls in, the screen looking more like a classic CRT, what system you want the games to be running on, since there were extremely minor differences between playing Sonic on different models of the Genesis. Some games go further than others. Some are in widescreen and others are just in 4:3. Some have touchscreen control for more precise movement, like Power Drift or Galaxy Force 2, and others, even if they are pretty basic, like Puyo Puyo 2, Streets of Rage, or Sonic 1 and 2, they're at the very least really good versions that run great and look fantastic. However, Sonic 1 and 2 not being in widescreen, like, come on, man, the mobile phone versions were. Why not these ones? If Fantasy Zone can be in widescreen, I don't understand why Streets of Rage can't be, and that mentality I have with pretty much all these 3D re-releases by Sega or Nintendo. I am very curious as to why some games got widescreen and others didn't. There were so many Sega 3D
There was probably
Classics
some weird technical
issues. Some of them were exclusive to Japan, some of them were exclusive to the physical collections they put out. The first one was the only one to come out here, Sega 3D Classics Collection, and it's so well done and full of life. I'd say this is one time where Sega easily ousted Nintendo. Their 3D Classics
on their own console.
Kinds of different systems, arcade, Master System, Genesis, the SG-1000. They put out loads of them, and they were mostly games people actually wanted to play. Nintendo did a couple of good ones, but mainly sat in their own piss asking why nobody wanted to play with them. Yeah, these are all great re-releases. I just wish they did more of them. Specifically Nintendo. I think if Sega did more, they'd pass out. They just chose the wrong
probably.
games to do this line with. I'm happy they did what they did. I mean, these are all the definitive versions of each game. But why
dark.
TwinBee? Why Urban Champion? I'm sick of living in the dark about this. I'm gonna go into the credits and find who to harass. I'll give Arika this. They're hard to threaten.
All right. Oh, actually, you can still see me pretty good, but yeah, it's getting dark. Kind of wish I did this earlier. Usually this late, it actually gets pretty busy working my job with DoorDash, and usually I'd actually be finishing work at this time. I actually kind of had a rough day, mostly because my phone was being very horrible to me, but it stopped doing that after a while. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Ooh, wow, that went a lot longer than I expected. That thing that happened, like, I'm gonna check the video later and find out what was that, because it made I heard the sound of somebody subscribing to my channel, but how is that possible if this isn't live? Like, how could I hear that? You know, I'm not using the internet to do this. I mean, I'm connected to the internet technically right now. I'm going to upload this video right after I'm done here, but that kind of freaked me out. I'm like, what's going on? Now I'm starting to worry. Did somebody hack my computer just to turn on the notification? You better not have, you jerks. Well, anyways, thank you so much for watching. That was a blast to watch. Honestly, I actually didn't know about these 3D classics, but to be fair, I didn't get the 3DS when it first came out in 2011. I waited. Now, granted, I got the Wii U on launch day when it came out in 2012. I got it. I was the first in my hometown of Santa Rosa, that direction. In my my first. I was the first person to get the Wii U at Target in my hometown of Santa Rosa. The very first person to get one, the Wii U there. So yeah, I was really highly interested in the console when it first came out. Nowadays, I don't really buy anything at launch anymore because it's just more expensive that way. But continuing on, the 3DS, I didn't get. Actually, I never bought a 3DS for myself. In 2014, yeah, in early 2014. I got a 2DS because it was pretty new at the time, and I didn't care about the 3D feature. I played a 3DS before. I used to work at Taco Bell, and I had coworkers who played, DS and 3DS, and I played on somebody's 3DS, and I enjoyed it, but I noticed I never really used the 3D feature that much. I didn't see the point of it. Most of the time, it was not something that was eye-opening to me. I could see the 3D feature, I noticed it, but it just didn't really matter. Most of the time, there was not something popping up at the screen. Like the best thing I remember seeing when I had the 3D turned on was in Mario Kart 7 when Blooper would ink the screen. That was the best thing I remember seeing. It was impressive. That was impressive. I remember it being impressive, but other than that, I just didn't really care. So that's why I got the 2DS, because it costs like $70 less than the 3DS. And granted, yes, it's flat like this instead of being able to open and close. I didn't mind that. It actually still fits in my pocket pretty well, and it has the slider at the bottom to put it in standby, so you don't. So even though you can't shut it to put it in standby, you can just use the slider at the bottom and put it in standby. So it's fine, and it plays every 3DS game and every DS game. It just doesn't have a 3D function, which costs like $70 more to have that I never use. So why bother with that? So moving on. I think the reason why I didn't know about these 3D classics was because I just wasn't really interested in the 3DS and getting the 3DS when it first came out. When I kept seeing, like, oh, hey, it's Star Fox 64 3D. Oh, hey, it's Ocarina of Time 3D. I'm just thinking, is it just going to be a bunch of remakes of N64 games? Like, what? I still have my N64. I could just play those games on there. Plus, on my Wii, I downloaded Star Fox 64, so I didn't care, And then, of course, there was like a Street Fighter 2 re-release or something, and I even played a demo of it at GameStop, turned on the 3D feature, noticed nothing when I did. Yeah, so I just didn't see much of a point of getting the 3DS. but it was nice that they added that much lower budget 2DS that was like $70 less, because I don't use the 3D feature, and I loved that console. I still play it every once in a while. I mean, obviously my Switch takes over my gaming time, and sometimes my PC, or even just my phone. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for watching. And thank you to, I guess, somebody subscribing while I was recording this without streaming it. I don't know, but maybe I somehow accidentally pressed the button that turns on the notification. I don't know. But that said, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, click that bell icon to have notifications. What'd you think about these 3D classics? I thought having Kirby's Adventure made sense because it's a great game. Came out very late in the NES lifespan. I mean, it was like in the middle of the SNES lifespan. And I didn't take that much longer after that for PlayStation and Dreamcast to come out. But, you know, that's a good game. But, you know, you can't really add 3D features to that, so it was kind of pointless to release it that way. It was cool that they added new stuff to Kid Icarus to make it stand out. That was kind of cool. I didn't like all the backgrounds, but some of the backgrounds look pretty good, actually. Anyways, I'm amazed he was able to talk about these 6, like, now games that probably nobody plays anymore, for so long, and I'm surprised I've been reacting for so long. It's like twice as long as this video, but like I said, I freaked out over that notification I didn't expect on a recording that isn't a live stream. Anyway, thank you so much. Gave me a lot to say. Some weird stuff happened, and it happens to be getting dark out, so I guess it's meant to be. That will conclude this Reacts video. Also, just a quick plug, my channel is not just Reacts videos. I also upload my own stuff that I edit, like my Sonic movie review. I've been wanting to get more views on that because I worked really hard on it. It took months for me to make it, partly because I was unable to access my computer for a whole month because I was waiting for a part for it. But also because I've been busy with work and just didn't have much time to do editing on it. But I finished the video on July 29th, I think was the date, and people like it. The people who watched it liked it, and I hope more people will come see it, because I worked hard on it, and it was hard to actually upload it because of copyright infringement issues despite fair use. So I hope people will go see it, and not just judge me as being just a React channel. Don't worry, I'll keep making React videos. That's actually probably the Scott the Woz React videos to Borderline are probably why my channel's monetized now, actually. And some of my old gaming videos from a decade ago have helped too. But so I'm going to keep making these React videos, but I do plan to make some more original stuff with fully edited things and so on. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell icon to have notifications.